Hello and welcome to the hothouse. This week I thought it'd be a great opportunity to tell you about some of the things that I've been doing with our seed collection. I'll cover the organisation of the seeds, the storage of the seeds, and data recording of our species. Some of the benefits of this is that a really obvious one, but useful, is it'll help us find the species that we're hoping to propagate. We'll be able to go to the cupboard and find just the thing easily without searching through a pile of things. It will help us to readily determine if stock is low, and if stock is low, we'll be able to go out and collect some more seed. And another less tangible reason is that this kind of organisation will help us to be much more autonomous and much less reliant on Corey. So up until now, every step of the way, we need Corey's presence to sort of have just that little bit of input to guide us as to what we're doing, where we go to do it, and so on. And so this kind of process, this system, I'm hoping, will help us become more autonomous and maybe even more efficient and less reliant on Corey's presence. Here we are in head office, and the cupboard where all the seed is now stored. As you can see, we've got all these containers. Now, generally speaking, the species are stored in alphabetical order. However, there are some exceptions to that. It seems logical, if we're thinking grasses, we want to propagate grasses, rather than going through the entire collection, to have them grouped together. So I've done grasses in an alphabetical system on their own, and similarly rushes, sedges and reeds, they're all gathered together as well. And the other exception to my alphabetical rule is acacias. We have quite a collection of acacias. They fill up a box, so they're all together. They're at the beginning of the alphabet, of course. We've got more acacia here, and then a box for Alocasuarina, a box for eucalyptus, and then we move into a complete alphabetical system for the rest of the species. We have identified each packet. It's all standardized. We've got a Ziploc bag, and that helps to seal off the seeds from moisture and from insects. And each is labelled with the genus and the species, the date that the seed was collected, and the provenance. Why are we bothering with provenance? This is a really interesting one to consider. Here we have an interesting collection of Chrysocephalum apiculatum, and in terms of provenance, this is quite interesting because we have broadleaf form from Victor Harbor, and another example, we have fine leaf form from Cape Jervis. Now, if we were to plant the broadleaf one that comes from Victor Harbor in Cape Jervis, Cape Jervis is a very harsh and exposed environment, and such a broad leaf would find it very difficult to survive. This species has adapted within the species so that some have narrow leaves and are much more able to cope with those harsher conditions, and typical of all plants in harsh conditions, the leaf becomes smaller and less exposed to sunlight, to wind, those harsh elements. And so the Victor Harbor one that we have, the broadleaf, it's much more protected, and the leaves are able to stretch out, if you like, and take the more gentle conditions. The database that I've been building that represents the seed collections that we were just looking at in the stool cabinet in head office. The green heading across the top, we have botanic name for the species, the common name, whether that species is grown from seed or a cutting. Habit describes the habit of the plant, so whether it's a grass, a shrub, ground cover, or a tall tree. Seed quantities, we have some wonderful new scales that I can use to measure the seeds now, measure as in a very fine weight, and then I can count the seeds per gram, for example, and then extrapolate from that the actual quantity of seeds in numbers. So I'm yet to do that work, and that'll take me a little while, but that'll be good to know seed numbers. The next column tells us where the seed has been gathered, and where indeed where those new plants that we grow, where they'll go back to their new site. The collection date, Corey has written these dates when he was out on site gathering seed. He recorded the date at the time, and so in the future we can use this information to know when to go out and gather more seed. Propagation time, of course, this tells us when we will want to actually start thinking about growing some more plants, when to do the cuttings, when to sow the seed. These two columns will be useful for us. We don't have to refer to Corey all the time. We can look at this information ourselves and start being a little more proactive and autonomous. The Firewise column represents the plants that will be used in the Firewise program. At the moment, these plants are, I've entered these species based on the data that Corey and Maddie have been gathering, but we do need to confirm this, but that's work in progress. And in the last column, landscape, tells us the kinds of environments that a particular species likes to grow in. So for example, if we look down in grasses at Spinifex hirsutus, it's frontline coastal. It's quite clear that's where it needs to go. And so similarly, when we look at Poa poiformis, it tells us it can grow near the coast, not frontline, but coastal cliffs, coastal foot slopes, second line coast, plains and hills. So each of the species has this description. We can use this information as volunteers to know where this species is best going to grow. Perhaps if Corey's not about and there's some planting going on, we can refer to this. Thanks for joining the hothouse.